Hi, Dr. Huff. This is Jason Huff and my informative speech. So first of all, let me show you my cards. And now let me show you my audience members. I have Belmont Penguin here, and I also have Simba the lion. I'm going to get my camera set up and I will give you my speech. In 2008, game developer Mark Wolf, author of The Video Game Explosion, traced the beginning of video games back to 1958 to William Higginbotham's Tennis for Two experiment. He notes that the experiment demonstrated interactive control of on-screen gameplay. Because of today's standards, however, most people do not consider this to have been a video game. Gaming has come a long way since the 50s, but its high entertainment value has secured its success and popularity for the last 60 years. The history of video games can be divided into three eras: the era of theory, the transitional era, and the era of pop culture. Today, video games are a large industry with many competing developers. However, the start of video games in the era of theory has two main parts: the theoretical roots of gaming and the very first games that were created. In the early 50s, computer gaming was just a theory. Researchers at top universities around the US hypothesized how a computer might be used to create simple games as far back as the 1940s, with active research projects popping up throughout the 1950s. This resulted in the era of theory creating its first games. While many people regard Space War, a game developed in 1962 by MIT students, to be the first computer game, Professor Earl Carey writes in 2005 for his book, Retro Game Programming, that Noughts and Crosses, developed by A.S. Douglas in 1952, preceded it by 10 years. Noughts and Crosses played similarly to tic-tac-toe, and, while simple, was revolutionary for its time. Followed 6 years later by William Higginbotham's previously mentioned Tennis for Two program, the 50s marked a time of inspiration for computer gaming and the first steps towards video games becoming popular in culture. It would just take a little more time for them to become mainstream. This period, the transitional era, has two main frames: the first mass computer games created for public consumption, and the first console created for at-home use. According to journalist Michelle Juergen, in A Brief History of Play, written in November 2010, Nolan Bushnell programmed the first coin-operated video game, Computer Space, in 1971. This would mark the beginning of what is known as the arcade era. If you have seen this show, Stranger Things, or the movie Tron, this arcade culture is portrayed. However, according to researcher Nick Monfort in his 2009 book, Racing the Beam, shortly after the release of Computer Space, the first arcade-like console, Pong, was released in 1972. Built by Atari, Pong acted as the first stepping stone for arcade gaming in homes. But 1972 had even more to offer. That same year, the first home gaming system was released to the public. Known as the Magnavox Odyssey, it was not capable of displaying color, emitting sound, or recording the player's score, but it was the start of something big. Video gaming became a rage at home and in arcades. Video games were now more than a theory. They were big business. With the success of arcades and home consoles, the era of pop culture began. This can be described in two facets: increased accessibility of video games in the home in the 80s through the 2000s, and where video gaming is currently. More and more home consoles followed in the 1980s. Because home consoles were affordable and had high entertainment value, they began appearing in and more homes. Developers had seen the potential for profit, and soon newer models with improved features were being released. Over the next few decades, many big names would fall out of the business, but by the fifth generation of home consoles, Sega, Sony, Nintendo, and Atari were the leading companies, with Microsoft joining the fray in 2001. Written for their book Playing the Past in 2008, historians Lori Taylor and Zach Whalen state, In late 2006, Sony's PlayStation 3 console and Nintendo's Wii promised to usher in a new era of gaming with powerful graphics and innovative approaches to play. Joining the Xbox 360, these game systems complete the 7th console generation. This leads us to where gaming is today. It's not just home consoles that have grown. Staff writers Jason To and Bernard Tan write for their article Mobile Gaming in March of 2018 that mobile gaming was the highlight of the 2016 Electronic Entertainment Exposition in Los Angeles, with Nokia showcasing its next-gen mobile gaming platform and a series of new game releases. It is apparent that gaming will continue to grow as technology improves. Gaming has advanced significantly over the last few decades. It went through 3 eras, starting as a theory, transitioning, and is now a part of popular culture. Since its creation, gaming has spawned a large following, even spawning its own co-cultures. It is important to remember that which is now such a big part of entertainment in our everyday lives started out as a simple experiment. Thank you.